If there's one thing that this film did do right, I think that it got the title right, being Bottoms. Now, what did I think about Bottoms, and should you be checking it out? We have gotten a decent amount of comedy films this year, and raunchy ones at that. So is this film worth your time? Well, stick around, and let's talk about it. Two unpopular queer high school students start a fight club to have sex before graduation. The film stars Rachel Sennott, Ayo Edebiri, Ruby Cruz, Havana Rose Liu, Kaia Gerber, Nicholas Galitzine, Miles Fowler, and Marshawn Lynch, and was directed by Emma Seligman. So when I first saw the trailer for Bottoms, I honestly thought to myself, I honestly don't think this is going to be for me. I'm going to elect to skip this in theaters. A few people on my timeline did review it, and they seemed to really like it. Twitter and Letterboxd, they give this film 4 and 5 stars. So I was like, all right, a lot of people really like it. Maybe it's really funny, and maybe I will really enjoy it. Had Rachel Sennott in it, and she has been in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. So I've seen her in that, and I thought she was pretty decent. Positives that I can say about this movie is I did like the music in here. I thought it really stood out. The whole high school scenery, it definitely reminded me of like Not Another Teen Movie. And this film, it tries to go into the satire route. Marshawn Lynch is also in this, which was quite the surprise. You know, I didn't expect to see him acting wise, and I thought that he did a pretty good job. I don't think he's been in any other movie or anything else. I think he's probably done commercials, and obviously he's an ex-football player, so he has that kind of personality of Marshawn Lynch, and I felt like a lot of his lines were very much improvised in here, and I feel like with him being the history teacher, he was pretty funny. A lot of his lines really correlate with the girls, and I actually enjoyed his lines when he's on screen, even though he doesn't have a ton of screen time. I think he's funny to an extent. There's one part when he's actually teaching and he's just sitting back and he folds out a porno magazine. I thought that was pretty funny for what he was doing in class. You know, obviously that's not a normal teacher thing, so it was just funny that he was actually doing that. Our two main characters, PJ and Josie, obviously they are both gay, and they want to lose their virginity before graduation. After having a little episode with a football player, they accidentally hit him with their car going like maybe 5 miles an hour, if that. They make a huge big deal about it. The principal gets on to them about it, and you can tell that the school is very passionate about their football team. And throughout, they're getting bullied. They're getting all these messages on their lockers. They're being treated just like girls that are not popular, that kind of thing. And so they decide, let's go ahead and start up our own club. Let's start up a fight club. And then they also have the ambassador, the history teacher played by Marshawn Lynch, to basically supervise when they have these meetings. When they have these meetings, they're teaching like how to fight, self-defense, talking about girl problems. And then there's also a lot of feminism within this film. And that's really the basis of this movie. Now, I can say this, I obviously can't relate to a lot of the girl problems in this, and I felt like the plot in this film, even though it was these girls trying to lose their virginity, a lot of times they're just in the gymnasium and they're having these different talks, and you know, they're obviously, you know, practicing like fighting and defending themselves, that kind of thing, having some comedy along the way, but a lot of the gags really run out quick, especially when they get like all this graffiti written on their locker, the football players, how they treat them. It's just so over the top. Every character in this film is very much over the top. It feels even more over the top than like Not Another Teen Movie. There really is no realistic logic within this film. There pretty much is not a lot of teachers around. The teachers that are around, they're cussing, they're letting these kids do whatever they want and running ragged around the school. They even have a mural of the football team naked in the cafeteria. So there's a lot of crazy things within this film that just is very unrealistic. And if you're looking for like a really realistic high school setting, this is definitely not it. I also felt like the comedy in this film, it didn't really land for me other than the fact when Marshawn Lynch was on screen. Now, the acting in this film, it's fine to a certain extent. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but just a lot of the jokes never really land for me. I feel like the plot, there's not a lot of whole plot to really go upon here. I feel like we have these girls, they're trying to accomplish, obviously, losing their virginity, but honestly, throughout this film, there's only one attempt that both girls tried to hook up with one of the girls that they really like in their fight club outside of school. And that's really the only time we really see them really get that lesbian side out of them, because, we know that they are lesbians, obviously, but, it doesn't really go too much into that side. I feel like it's more so just them kind of fitting in, having that coming of age story. So if you're really into that, you may really like this film. But I just felt like the plot it didn't really drive forward for me. I felt like it was just staying in one place and not really developing the characters enough. I didn't feel like the characters were really going forward or really developing forward in their story and their predicament. And I think that's probably the biggest problem I have for this film. I felt as the movie went along, the humor got worse. There's one part in this film where a kid gets thrown a fruit cup at him, and he completely writes in his book that he's going to blow up the school. I was like, that is not funny. Like, who wrote that? Like, who actually thought that was funny? And later in the film, there's another plot that is actually pushed in between just this whole fight club thing, where there is a rival high school, and they're going to have their rival team come in, and they're going to play them in a football game. Well, when they show up, you have these girls in the fight club that want to fight them. And there's a scene that goes down where they actually fight the other football team, beat them up, and it's completely violent and bloody. And I was like, this is so out of left field. There's another scene where a girl in the fight club actually is in the gymnasium, and she has to fight a grown man, and the grown man beats the absolute crap out of her, and she's just bloodied up, and there's no teachers around, there's no nothing. I'm like, is this supposed to be funny? Because this is just flat out freaking stupid. And that's the kind of thing that this film actually does. It just has all these scenes that just felt really childish to me at times, and a plot that it just can be incohesive at times. Like it seems to lack focus a little bit in the girls and what they're trying to do and trying to better themselves. And I feel like their story and this coming of age story, I definitely feel like it could have worked a little bit more. But then you have the rival high school plot. And by the end of this film, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm losing brain cells by the minute, because it just was not funny. I wasn't laughing. And I was just like, wow, this is really awful. I mean, there's other films that came out this year, like No Hard Feelings, that I really enjoyed, and Joyride, which was okay and kind of predictable. And I guess I could say with this film, it wasn't necessarily predictable. I guess you can give it that. But it's a film that is just like, what the heck is going on? Obviously, it's trying to have humor and poke fun of certain things, but I just feel like some of the humor in here, it just does not land. I would say most of it doesn't land for me. When this film ended, there were 4 things that I wrote down that I think that this film did not do. The first of those is, did I care about the character's journey? Absolutely not. Did all the problems that come in hand by the end, did they actually have merit and actually wrap up in a cohesive story by the end? Absolutely not. And did the characters actually learn a lesson or really show that coming of age that they've really grown as characters by the end? Absolutely not. I think this film, it's an idea of showing things where girls really go through certain things throughout high school, certain things that they actually face. But I don't really think that this film focuses 100% on that. It feels more so with an idea, with a satire little plot in there, with humor thrown in there. And by the end of this film, I just feel like this film, it just doesn't do its job telling a really good story. So as far as a score for this film, I would give it a 1.5 out of 5. I don't know if I'm just getting older and I don't understand this new wave of comedy these days, but this film was not in the least funny for the most part. So I cannot recommend this film, and unfortunately I wasted $5 renting this film. I would not waste any money on it. If you really want to watch it, wait till it goes on some streaming service for free. I don't think it's worth your time. Let me know in the comments, what did you think about Bottoms? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you just think it was kind of meh? And if you haven't checked it out, are you going to now check it out now that it's on VOD? I'm not sure if it's going to go to a streaming service, but I'm sure it eventually will. I would recommend not paying anything for this film and just waiting for a streaming service. But if you really want to check it out, I completely understand. Thank you guys for watching this review, and I will see you guys on my next review.